The Carolina Hurricanes suffered their first loss of the season in a who knows what that was. That was a game that was Luxmord. I'll put it that way. You know what? Let's just talk about it on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Murn. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, give you my thoughts on the Canes' 6-3 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights as they've got season swept by them. Also going to talk about a great game that we saw from Alexander Nikishin and why Sean Walker has been very huge for the Blue Line, despite all of the injuries. And then we're going to listen to Rod Brind'Amour postgame and give you my thoughts on all of that. But before we jump into that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, before we go into all the negative or all the what the heck was this type of stuff, there was some good news for the game, at least for the Hurricanes, in that Jordan Martinook scored his first goal of the season. Andrei Svechnikov scored his first goal of the season to get his first point as well after going droughtless to the first 8 games. The power play did score. They went 1 for 1, so you love to see that, especially the fact that they went 1 for 21 on the road trip. Logan Stankoven did score his third of the season, and Sebastian Aho keeps his point streak up to 9 games. Now, Jordan Martinook did say after the game that moral victories don't really count in the NHL, which he is right. Moral victories don't really matter on the scoreboard or in the standings, but it's good to see the fact that you see some guys getting off the schneid and getting their first points. All that to be said, the Hurricanes did have a couple leads. They were up 1-0 through the first 5 minutes of the game, then got a lead early in the third period thanks to Logan Stankoven's goal. And then past that, it wasn't really much between the fact that the Hurricanes were down 2-1 after 1. It was 2-2 after 2, and then the Golden Knights put 4 unanswered in the third period, following the Stankoven goal to win it 6-3, with Jack Eichel scoring 2 and Pavel Dorofeyev putting up 2 as well. Now he's up to 9 on the season. And this was a game where, you lose Shayne Gostisbehere after the first period. Now they're saying it's a midsection injury. Now this is a new one compared to his lower body that made him leave the road trip early. There's no timetable. There's no updates other than that. So we'll see over the next few days what's going on with Shayne Gostisbehere. So the Hurricanes were down to 5 defenders, and then Joel Nystrom takes a puck to the teeth. So he missed for a good portion of the time. So the Hurricanes were down to 4 defensemen, and they were, having to dig deep with the fact that you were down to 2 solid pairs of defensemen left. And that's really about it. You got, you had, with the fact that it was Nikishin and Chatfield and Walker, and then also Dominic Fensore. And all I can really say is the fact that this game was you can tell the Hurricanes were really trying, but in the end they were gassed because you have your defensemen all basically having to play a bunch of time. The blue line of the guys who play, you're talking about 19 minutes and 22 seconds for Dominic Fensore, 24:04 for Walker, 27:33 for Nikishin, 25:45 for Jalen Chatfield. You had 3 guys in the 20s. One of them set a career high, which we'll talk about in segment 2. But you only had Shayne Gostisbehere for 7 minutes and 19 seconds after being gone for the last 3 games of the road trip. And you got Fensore in his first game up, being called up to the season, having to play over 19 minutes. He held his own for the most part. You can definitely tell us from growing pains there, but you can't really put much on him. This was just a game where it's unfortunate they lost bodies throughout the game. And this is also a game where, and I know some people are going to be, saying, well, you can't put the game on the refs, and some people are going to leave some interesting responses to this, but the Hurricanes ultimately, I believe, got absolutely hosed in a good portion of this game, especially the fact that there was a missed slew foot from Lazan on Nikolai Ehlers, and somehow both of those guys get roughing after Ehlers was trying to go after him, and he gets jumped by Brett Howe. And I'm not saying jumped in the sense that it was bad. He got grabbed from behind while he was trying to get to Lausen for the fact that there was no reason why he should have gotten slew-footed. That was missed. And then Andrei Svechnikov blatantly got tripped that basically everyone saw. Like, I don't know how that was missed, and that led to Jack Eichel's second goal of the game that came in the third period, and that put the Hurricanes down 5-3. And somehow the Hurricanes only had one power play the entire game, and it lasted 2 seconds. Maybe even that, because I think it was like 1 second on the clock when Andre scored his goal. That was it. Vegas had 4 power plays, and honestly, 2 of them were pretty soft. I know by letter of the law, they should have been penalties, especially the one on Svechnikov for slashing, because he kind of just like tapped the guy's gloves with his stick. By letter of the law, that is a penalty, but there were some that were definitely missed there as well throughout the game from other, from not even just the Vegas game. There are other games that they were just missed on the Hurricanes, but somehow there's no reason why a missed slew foot or a missed trip was just not called. And I know Chip Tracy said during the broadcast that the refs could say that Andre was already on his way down, but I didn't see him really going on his way down. He was just trying to skate away. He was just trying to get around the guy, and he just got even more knocked off of balance and fell down. Like, he would have been fine, but any other instance, that would have been a tripping penalty. So I am saying this whole game was on the reffing, but it was definitely a case where there was a lot of stuff that was missed. There was missed interferences. Like I said, a slew foot was missed, a trip was missed. And even talking to the other writers, guys who were at the game, who could see it in real time a lot better, had better replays. Even the Jordan Stahl cross-check was more of a push, but somehow that was called. And it was just, Luxmore was the ref, and it's always it seems like every time he's reffing a Hurricanes game, it's just there's always something. And Rod said it during the first, during the in-game interview with Hannah Yates, he's like, the first 5 minutes they were good, and then all the penalties started happening and just took them out of their flow. Vegas got up to a lead. All their big guys started getting moving, and it was just one of those things. So, yeah, you could say the guys were gassed. I'd say most of this game was because the team was just gassed for only having really 4.5 defensemen for most of this game, mainly 4. And then I guess on top of it, it's just how you only get one power play for 5 seconds, but there was or for 2 seconds, but then you see all these other calls that should have been made, but they just weren't made. And, icings that weren't really icings. So it's just, unfortunately, the Hurricanes' first home loss of the season came in a way of a season series sweep to Vegas Golden Knights. Yes, it's good the fact that you still get some goals from Andrei Svechnikov and Jordan Martinook, which is what you really love to see, especially for Svech, who a lot of people are wondering what's going on because he really need to get going. And you get Stankoven scoring goal, and the fact that Sebastian Aho is on a 9-game point streak, which is great to have. But now you're on a 2-game losing streak. You're 6-3 on the season, and your last game of October is on Thursday against the New York Islanders for your first Metro showdown since October 11th against the Philadelphia Flyers. But overall, this is kind of a game you just kind of have to flush away. Nothing you can do about it. We don't really get a lot of power play opportunities, and there was stuff that was missed. And, guys are just tired from playing so many minutes because your blue line is once again depleted. And now where do you go from here? Waiting for Mike, you're going to slide Mike Riley back in. You're going to have to call someone up as another 7th defenseman. Stuff needs to get figured out. And right now the Hurricanes are just not buying any luck with, the bounces or the injuries and stuff like that. And if these injuries are going to be long time or just consistent enough, maybe there's an early season trade. I don't know. But right now the Hurricanes are in dire straits on their blue line, and hopefully something gets figured out. But like Jordan Martinook said, moral victories aren't really There's nothing you can do about that in the NHL. Those only mean so much. But, hey, at least there were some goods in this game despite the loss. But two of the guys we're definitely going to talk about are Alexander Nikishin and Sean Walker and how much of an impact they had, in just not in this game, but overall for the Hurricanes so far this season. So stick around. We'll talk about them here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before the checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that just gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Those zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. How big? You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create a code, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So we kind of just talked about the game against the Vegas Golden Knights, and we all know what happened in that. But, however, there was some good to come out of it, and there were some guys we definitely got to talk about, especially two of them in general, Alexander Nikishin and Sean Walker. Now, with Alexander Nikishin, talk about putting the yeoman's work tonight for him when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes. Career high, 27 minutes and 33 seconds of ice time, led the entire team in time on ice. 33 shifts, 4 shots, 3 blocks, 3 hits as well. Now, his 4 shots did tie Andrei Svechnikov for the team lead. His 3 blocks were tied with Sean Walker and Dominic Fensore, so good to see that from Fensore as well. And the fact that his 3 hits were also a tie with Jordan Staal in the game. So a lot of ties or team leads by himself when it came for Alexander Nikishin. But talk about what Rod Brind'Amour and Tim Gleason is putting a lot of confidence in this guy. And, during the broadcast, Trip Tracy said that after getting into Dallas at like 4 in the morning or something to their hotel, there was a long conversation that Alexander Nikishin had with defense coach Tim Gleason, and they were saying it during the game too. Every time he came off the ice, he's constantly talking to Gleason during that game, and that's why you see them going, putting him on the ice so much, because he keeps asking questions. He keeps learning really fast. Like, he's learning on the fly in his first full regular season with the Hurricanes, his first full season in North America. Still learning the language, but it seems like he's progressing pretty well overall. But the fact that he's still asking questions and still talking to Gleason every time he gets off the ice and trying to look at the iPad and learn, it shows that his dedication to the craft is there, and it's good to see from a 23-year-old guy, and that's why he was an alternate captain and a captain for Scott Moskow in the KHL. That's why he's considered one of the best defensemen in the KHL in general for just his work ethic, on and off the ice. And it says a lot, too, like I said, for the fact that he led the entire team. It could have been Jalen Chatfield. It could have been Sean Walker leading the team in minutes. I mean, Chatfield was 25-45. Walker was 24-04. And the fact that the Hurricanes leaned on their 23-year-old Russian defenseman in his actual rookie season with the Hurricanes speaks a lot for how much their trust is in him. And the fact that his stat line is amazing to see. I mean, even for Sean Walker, 2 shots, 3 blocks, 2 hits. Dominic Fensore, 2 shots, 3 blocks, and a hit. Like, Alexander Nikishin put his, body, mind, soul. He basically threw everything at the kitchen sink of the Vegas Golden Knights in this game. He even helped Jordan Martinook off the ice when Martinook lost his skate. And gotta give props to Martinook too. I mean, scored a goal, individual effort, got the breakaway in, scored, and had a bunch of blocks in this game too. But the fact that Jordan did a lot, but just the fact that you look at what Alexander Nikishin did, helping him out, get him off the ice after he lost his skate blade. It's good to see. It's refreshing to see how much he's already progressed in just 9 games with the Hurricanes in the regular season. A big jump from what we saw in the playoffs, where, you could definitely tell he was getting thrown into the fire, especially when you're looking at he played the last game of the Washington Capitals series in round 2, and then you go and play, 3 games in the Eastern Conference Final against the now 2-time defending Cup champion in the Florida Panthers. And that's kind of like, okay, we're going to just throw you in there and see how you do. And now he comes into this regular season, and he finishes with an even. He's still, it's like second on the team in the plus-minus category, but behind Shayne Gostisbehere, who's unfortunately out now. But he's done a lot. You've already seen the progression from what already he has accomplished this season. The fact that he's only 23, and he's 9 games into his regular season NHL career, and you just feel like he's just getting better and better as it goes along. So you love to see it for Alexander Nikishin and how he did in this game. Now he kind of just held his own and was just a wrecking ball out there for the Hurricanes. And that's definitely what you need right now, with the fact that you're just decimated all over your blue line. And even then, you got to talk about Sean Walker, and the guy said on the broadcast between Mike and Tripp, where would this defense be without Sean Walker? Because Walker right now has been, he played 24 minutes and 4 seconds, did finish with a -1, but 32 shifts, 2 shots, 3 blocks, 2 hits. He's had to take a bulk of the work, where he had to play with the fact that you had Nikishin on the top pairing with him. You look at what he's had to do when he had Mike Riley up there as well. He's doing what he has to do in terms of the top pair minutes. You're talking power play, PK, doing all he has to, because he has to take more of the workload, because you're out with Jacob Slavin, you're without Shayne Gostisbehere again. You're at one point, you're down to 4 defensemen, and he's basically getting double, triple shifted and just all this other stuff. He's, like I say, he played 24 minutes. Yeah, it wasn't Alexander Nikishin numbers where he's playing, a whole 3 minutes and 29 seconds more than him, but it's still a good amount. So it's just one of those things where it's, where are you without Sean Walker right now? Like, just the fact that, his 2-week game is so underrated in the fact that, maybe he's not going to put up a ton of points like other defensemen in the league, but he's still defensively sound. And ever since opening night, where it was an okay game from him, he's been solid. The last 8 games, he's been great. Like, breaking up passes, boxing guys out, forcing guys wide, putting a stick in the right place at the right time, trying to help be a focal point, being a guy who can help carry the team on his back on the defensive side of things. Rod Brind'Amour gave him praise last year, and even through the playoffs, that he just kept getting better and wasn't talked about enough. And look where they're at right now this season. It's still the same thing from Sean Walker. Just they're asking him to do more and more and more, take on more responsibility, take on more roles, take on more minutes. And Sean Walker's doing his thing. Like, he's doing what the Hurricanes ask of him, and it's helping. It's just, it's a lot for a guy who's on the second year of his 5-year contract with the Hurricanes, goes from playing mostly third pair last year to Shayne Gostisbehere, and then he comes up and plays first pair with Jacob Slavin, doing pretty well overall, loses his defensive partner second game of the season, then having to play with either Nikishin or Riley or name another guy who you have to go up there, and then he's having to play all these different roles of power plays and PKs and 5-on-5s and all these opportunities, but he's still doing what they need. And him and Chatfield and Nikishin, those 3 have been basically the big backbones of this defensive core. That's don't have Miller, you don't have Ghost, you don't have Slavin, you got all these rookies coming in, trying to help out, and you got Mike Riley trying to insert himself as well, and he's done pretty well, all things considered. So it's just, where is this defense without Sean Walker being a defensive stalwart for them and being someone who they can lean on? And Alexander Nikishin just keeps getting better as every game goes along, and holding his own and implementing more of what he can do. And the fact that he's consistently learning from Gleason, you love to see it, and that's what you saw in this game, and that's why he was either tied for the team lead in certain stats or led all by himself. And the fact that he had a career high in minutes and led the entire team in 27 minutes and 33 seconds of ice time at 23 in his rookie season. That shows how much trust they have in this kid. And that's why he wants to keep learning, and just he's going to keep getting better. You love to see it with the fact that the Hurricanes have Alexander Nikishin. Yes, he's in the last year of his entry-level contract, but obviously there's going to be an extension. He's going to be a Carolina Hurricane as long as they hope to keep him around. I think he wants to be here, but where's the defense without Nikishin and Walker out right now? Who knows? But we are going to listen to Rod Brind'Amour and get his thoughts, and I'll react to it following their loss against the Golden Knights. So stick around, and we'll do that here in a second on a Wednesday edition of Locked on Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, so we talked about the game overall. We got some guys scoring their first goals of the seasons. We got guys keeping their point streaks alive. Unfortunately, lost Shayne Gostisbehere, but we did talk about Alexander Nikishin and Sean Walker and how impactful they've been for the Hurricanes. So now let's listen to the head coach himself and get his thoughts following the game, and I'll give you my reactions and my thoughts to what Rod Brind'Amour said. So without further ado, let's jump into that right now.
Rod, you mentioned stress a lot when you're talking about the penalty kill, but it seems like you guys have been dealt a whole lot of other stress. Do you feel that mounting and leading to mistakes, maybe the amount of, just chaos that's kind of gone on with your lineup the last few games?
Yeah, I don't really know what you mean. Like, what's your question? Like,
do you think that that kind of chaos is leading to some of the mistakes that are?
Well, you kill penalties. Like, the first period was a perfect example. We came out great, and then we get 2, and then it just flipped the game. Right, all of a sudden, their best players started getting going, and and then it just kept going. It felt like we were in the box there for a lot. And, I mean, we're going to make mistakes. Good team, they're going to force you. They knew we were playing with a lot of, inexperience back there, but I thought they hung in there really well. And, we're somehow found our way in a tie game, and 5 minutes to go, we make a bad decision. And that's to your point. I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I think not really put that on there, but you got to make better decisions there. That's really the difference, especially when you know who's out, the best players are out there, and they make you pay.
How tough is the situation, especially in the end of the second period? You're down to 4 defensemen, guys having to go every other shift back.
Yeah, that's tough. And then we took a penalty with one of the D, so if we actually had a forward playing D for a while. Like, it's not ideal, but we've been saying this for a while. It's NHL, like, it's a tough league, and it's tough when you have a full lineup, let alone guys that are bound, but they're it is what it is. We got to figure a way when we're in those kind of games and we still have a chance to win. We got to make better decisions.
What happened with Gostisbehere after the first period?
I think he just felt something in his I think it was his midsection area, and he had to come out. So yeah, it's tough.
Is that the same injury? Or?
No, I don't think so.
Do you feel like Svechnikov is finding a little bit more of his game goal? Very involved.
He was more involved. Obviously, he got a goal, but he was more around it. I think he had really a couple other really good chances. Right after the start of the period on the second, had a right-in tight chance. So he was definitely more involved tonight.
We talked plenty about Jordan Martin and the way he dragged you guys into the fight. It seems like throughout the second period, he was leading the way.
Yeah, that line's always good every night. Whether they're on the score sheet or not, they get the tough matchup assignments. They got to do the heavy lifting, and they continue to do it.
Nikishin led you guys a nice time tonight. How do you feel like his progression?
That was a good game. I mean, he was noticeable in a real positive way, I thought. A couple good opportunities, broke a stick a couple times on a couple good chances. So he was definitely, I thought, maybe one of his better games.
Can you remember ever having 2 seconds of power play time and having a goal and that's it?
Yeah. Yeah, the more disturbing thing is just the disparity now. And kind of, it's been pretty much all year. We're just constantly, in the box and not a lot of equal time. Usually even self out, but it hasn't. And then part of it is when the other team was putting it on you, maybe it should look that way. But when we do it that way, I very rarely see us getting 4 or 5 more power plays. So that's concerning because you're not going to be able to sustain it if you're in the box that much more than the other team. It's like, to your point, it just puts way too much stress on your group.
What went into the decision to play Fensori over Riley?
Well, to be honest, Don's been playing really well, and it was more for that second unit power play. I thought maybe, dumb decision because I didn't know we were going to get 8 seconds of power play time, but that was really the decision. He'd been really lighting it up and controlling that part of the game, so I thought maybe that would be an asset.
Thank you to the Carolina Hurricanes, as always, and obviously Rod Brind'Amour for the post-game audio for us to use so that way you guys can get, hearing what's going on from the head coach or certain players. And Rod said it, I think, the best when the fact that you look at the disparity of what the Hurricanes had to deal with. Yeah, they had 21 power play opportunities over the road trip, but they had a lot more against them. And then in a game like this, where you heard me say in the first segment, a lot of penalties were missed. The Golden Knights were really putting it to the Hurricanes, and they were doing a lot of extra stuff that you should have gotten more power plays on. And even during the road trip, there was a lot of missed calls. And if the Hurricanes did the exact same thing, they got it too. So it's just one of those things where it just didn't really go your way. And then, Rod said it, your first 5 minutes were great. After that, you give them a couple penalties. Next thing you know, Vegas is up 2-1. Then you're in a bad spot. Then you're having to fight, and then you're down players as well. Like, it got to the point where with their 4 defense, they had a guy in a box, and you're having to use Mark Jankowski as a extra forward on the PK. And on the PK of 3 forwards and 1 defense because you're down so many guys. And that's even with the fact Sean Walker had a great game, and he even said that Alexander, that was part of one of Alexander Nikishin's best games. And the fact that he gave praise to the third line of Martin Stahl for having to take the tough assignments, dragging the team back into the game, and all that stuff. It was a culmination of just unfortunate circumstances, and the fact that they asked why play Fensore over Riley, and I agree with Rod. Like, Fensore was doing really good down the Chicago Wolves. He scored a power play goal, one sucker in OT for them against the Rockford Ice Hogs earlier in the week, and they thought, hey, he might be a good asset on the power play. And then, of course, dumb mistake. Of course, I was just joking about it. I had a dumb mistake. Didn't know we were only going to have like 2 seconds or 8 seconds of a power play. And that's it. And you thought it would be a great asset to use. But, I mean, in hindsight, hey, that would have been great if you're able to use Dominic Fensore on the power play. It's just unfortunately you just never got a power play for pretty much the rest of the game. You had the one in the first period. You scored in the first second of it. And the next thing you know, you just don't get any more for the rest of the game. When there could have been at least – it could have been 4-4 or at least 4-3 or something, not 4-1, and you had 1 second of a power play. But it's one of those things where these guys are battling. They just not able to keep enough guys healthy, and guys are getting shifted every other shift, and you're trying to dig deep, and it's just it's one of those things right now. Injuries is really killing the Carolina Hurricanes. And I mean, I hate to say it, but at least it's happening now and not in the playoffs. Yeah, you never want to lose guys. But if you had to, I guess you would have to pick now. But even then, it still stinks because you want everyone available. But right now, the Hurricanes are battling. I mean, luckily they have Wednesday off, and they got the Islanders on Thursday, and then they got Boston on Saturday to start November. So it'll be interesting to see what the Hurricanes do. If Gostisbehere's out again, you got to put Mike Riley back in the lineup. Then it's like, all right, do you call who you calling up as your 7th defenseman? Is Legault coming back, or are you bringing someone else up? I mean, it's just right now the Hurricanes' defensive depth is really getting strained right now, and you're hoping to keep some bodies alive because right now it's just you're battling, man. You're battling, and hopefully it gets a little bit better. But it's only 9 games of the season. You're still in 3rd place in the Metro. You're still within striking distance. You still have a game in hand on the New Jersey Devils, who lead the division right now. You got Pittsburgh, who's kind of surprising everyone. So you're still within striking distance. Like I said, you're 6-3. Hopefully, make up the game on Thursday to kind of end the 2-game homestand on a positive note, and then start November and go on from there. But it is what it is. It's an unfortunate game that you thought the Hurricanes could have won because they had a lead twice, but apparently the hockey gods thought differently, and Vegas ultimately takes the season series sweep, outscoring the Hurricanes 10-4, going back to the 4-1 game, and then the 6-3 game on Tuesday. But we'll see what happens on Thursday. Hopefully get back in the win column and get some points, especially when the fact you're talking about a Metro matchup against the Islanders. But until then, guys, this will be the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the AHL Game Night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find AHL Game Night on Locked On AHL on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at One True Zach on X, the podcast. Welcome, Bruce. Thank you, Zach. You can find all the articles at thehockeywriters.com. Have been putting out a massive amount of stuff over the last few weeks since the season started, so make sure to check that out at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube for Locked On Hurricanes. You can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up to me like the show as well. Share with all our Canucks. We come every dayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Wednesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy their Wednesday. Until next time, as always, let's go Canes.